Assalamu alaikum. We're back. We have another in context. Today's February 8th. We're going to visit today the topic of Syria again. I think this is a topic that we're probably going to visit in this podcast several times because events on the ground are changing rapidly. Alliances are forming rapidly, and we need to be abreast to what's going on. So I think maybe logical says every 6 weeks I might push you to revisit this topic. And I want to start by asking you a simple question. In regards to Syria, I think it's a positive, of course. That's an understatement that getting rid of Assad and his monstrous regime is, alhamdulillah, a good thing for Islam, for the future of Islam. But is this new government and what they're doing also a quote unquote victory for Islam? I'm going to put that in context for you and let you take over.
Thank you. Okay, so we need to think about the Ummah as a whole, not just Syria. The fact that the Ummah does not have to deal with the monstrous regime of Assad is a step forward for the Ummah as a whole. This was a cancer. The fact that it's out, even if it was replaced with a melody, is not as bad. Could not be as bad. I could theorize a couple of situations where that would be as bad, like direct Israeli occupation, but this hasn't happened. So regardless of how you assess the current situation, it's certainly the mere collapse of the Assad regime is progress, step forward. Next step is the current political setup in Syria the best that can be hoped for? Yeah, I think so. What you have right now is not a collapsed state. What you have is a collapsed society. Uh, Regimes like Ba'ath do not just destroy state institutions, do not just run the economy aground, do not just suck the state dry because they are thieves. They also destroy the structure of society. And uh, in Iraq, we can see that after Saddam fell in the fact that there was no societal structures at all, and people started looking around, casting around for leaders, and they ended up with all kinds of corrupt leaders, like the former senior officers of Saddam army and the turban sectarian agents of the US, like Sistani. But in Syria, it was even much worse because the regime was there for much longer. The Ba'athist corruption and malice in Syria was much more insidious, much more bureaucratic, much longer term. And it ended up not just destroying the social structure, it ended up destroying humanity itself.
Yes.
So what we had in Syria was not internal occupation like Egypt or internal mafia run amok like Iraq. What we had was internal genocide with many cities being destroyed completely and its occupants either killed or chased out of their land. So what you have right now is if the orange gorilla calls Gaza a demolition site, Syria isn't even a demolition site because in Gaza there is a cohesive society. They can destroy the physical structures, but in Syria, the society itself, the human enterprise itself, has been corrupted, deeply corrupted. And it would take a long process to dig out of this. So, uh, given that, the idea that you can build a state that will stand out to the colonial order is not viable. You don't have the human capital, you don't have the ideological capital, and you won't stand a chance. What the current government is doing is obviously these people love Islam, but they also are in the Machiavellian mold of Erdogan. I'd call them Erdogan Junior, the group as a whole, because they are not just in the mold of Erdogan because of the long association and work with the Turkish government and intelligence, so they have similar outlook. They are also under more or less protection or tutelage of the Turkish state. So you should think of this as not a forerunner of the victory of Islam or Islamic State information. You should think of this as an expansion of the Erdogan project. That is not necessarily a bad thing because although this is not the state of Islam, whether it's in Turkey or in Syria, it's not at war with Islam. So don't expect it to come out and support and protect and progress the idea of Islam and the establishment of Islam as a political force in life. But you can look for it as a place where possibly Muslims and the Ummah can operate more freely and try to start thinking and organizing for a next step. That
Makes
is
sense.
the overall outlook, in my opinion. Great step for humanity, great step for the Ummah, one step in a very long road.
How about getting specific? The current leader Ahmed is making moves.
Hmm.
Um, he recently was in the
Hmm.
news. He visited Saudi Arabia, visited MBS, had that
Hmm.
amazing photo op where he's wearing his nice suit. I noticed, by the way, his suits are getting a little more high class. His hair is getting more slicked back. He's playing the role. Um, and my naive political eyes just see someone who is trying to survive because, like you said, it's not really designed to be a viable state. So he has to make some moves in order to achieve viability. Agree or disagree?
Yes, you can, look at how, for example, Erdogan operates. So Erdogan and MBS are not friends. Erdogan actually held MBS to ransom when he killed Khashoggi in the embassy in Istanbul and extract concessions from him. On the other hand, Erdogan does business with MBS and will keep doing business with MBS because he has political or sees political value in doing business with him, and he is constrained in ways that make him need to do business with MBS. The same thing exactly applies to the group that is running Syria right now. I don't want to fall into the uh, leadership or idolatry. So describing it as the leader, I avoid that. Uh, an idol fell, definitely we don't want to build another idol. To a lot of people are receptive to what this government is doing because it's much better than the alternative. Uh, some people, just like they do with Erdogan, come out and turn to a hero and start pumping air into it, and that's the interesting. One thing to the credit of the current group running Syria is they don't seem trying to polish their credentials, unlike Erdogan, who has this knack, and that's actually to their credit. So uh, I suspect also if they try to do this, it won't fly with a lot of people. But the truth is they are not trying, and that's a good thing.
Okay, there is one more important note. I know it's a different topic. I'm not trying to bring it up now, but Lebanon now has a new government.
Hmm.
And I bet you, again, different topic. One of the big things they need to discuss is what to do with Hezbollah.
Hmm.
I would imagine Syria also has this discussion. It's a country that prior to the Assad's fall, Hezbollah had heavily influence in there.
Hmm.
And now that Iran's out and Hezbollah is quote unquote out, I would imagine Syria is now having this discussion as well. Any thoughts on that note?
Yes. So first, Hezbollah is not out.
Hmm.
It's a strong military organization. It's stronger than Lebanese army. Lebanese army is not picking a fight with it. So it's not out. We'll talk about that later. But for now, just to recap, there has been several clashes between military outfits affiliated with Hezbollah and the Syrian government.
Hmm.
So on several occasions, they intercepted weapons transfers from Syria to Lebanon, distant to Hezbollah. There has been also clashes with what the Syrian government described as smugglers in the area at the very far north of Lebanon. Over the last few days, 3 or 4 days, there has been clashes in no, northeastern Lebanon at the interface between Al-Qusayr in Syria and Al-Hermel in Lebanon. Uh, According to the Syrian government, there are drug smugglers in this area who are affiliated with Hezbollah. These drug smugglers are controlling several villages on the Syrian side of the border, and they are trying to evict them from there. According to Hezbollah, they are attacking peaceful Lebanese citizens, and they are continuing the Israeli war on Hezbollah based on US commands. The Lebanese government today issued an order to its army to defend the Lebanese territory from sources of fire on the Syrian side of the border. Regardless of the reports, the truth is, this is physical truth, that this all started with a clash between patrol of the Syrian security forces and a military outfit that resulted in the capture of a vehicle that belongs to the Syrian security forces and two individuals who were also injured. They were later returned. So the claims that this is a continuation of the Israeli war in Lebanon is hard to substantiate because that doesn't look like it. The Syrian government claimed that these are drug smugglers, may have some grounds because actually this is a known route for smuggling of hashish. And Hezbollah and the former Syrian government had gotten the normal business of Arab states as criminal organizations into high order, where they became an international supplier of drugs as state policy.
Yes.
So there is some merit in this. On the other hand, there is a lot of foolish exulting in Syria on we're going to cripple Hezbollah. In my opinion, this is lunacy because crippling Hezbollah is actually going to hurt the government in Syria. Right now, Israel is trying to push them into either clashing with it so it can get political influence in Syria or accepting it so it can get concessions. They are evading this, and I think it's a reasonable way by ignoring the issue at all. However, if you make Israel less occupied with Hezbollah in Lebanon, you're inviting it to interfere more in Syria.
Yes.
The same Israeli military units, the same leadership that is bombing Lebanon, that was bombing Lebanon yesterday, is the same leadership, it's the same planes that is bombing Damascus today. The raid they are not going to launch in Lebanon because you crippled Hezbollah is going to be launched in Syria. So even if you believe that there is no doubt that Hezbollah is a criminal organization and they have been part of the genocide. On the other hand, whether they are or not is beside the point because right now Israel is interfering in Syria and Lebanon. Any crippling of Hezbollah is going to help that. So it's completely stupid and foolish, if not criminal and treacherous, to start talking about crippling Hezbollah by crippling its military supplies. On the other hand, it's quite reasonable of the current government in Syria to try to get rid of the ingrained mafia that was the original Syrian government and those related to it, like Hezbollah in Syria. So, but there is a distinction here. The military capability of Hezbollah in Lebanon is important to protect Syria. And that needs to be clear. I suspect it would eventually become clear in the coming few months. But the loud voices are not going to get it, and that's not very important. There are always fools. The important thing, however, is there is a lot of MBS and MBZ plans who speak as in the name of Syrian nationalism, and that's rubbish. They exist, and it's important to distinguish them because these people have been pushing the Umayyad strand of jingoism. We are
Repeat that.
Umayyads as opposed to anti-Shia, and that's rubbish. That's not Islam. That is not even nation state. This is complete rubbish. This is MBS and MBZ rubbish. Okay. There is the fact that Hezbollah is a criminal organization is one thing. We go and destroy Islamic history is another thing. The fact that Hezbollah committed genocide in Syria is one thing. The fact that it and Israel have a war in Lebanon is another thing. You can walk and chew gum. This is reality and politics.
Well put. I see it. I think you covered all my questions.
Okay, thank you. I think we are done for today.
All right.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Yeah.